Hello, great to see you. This is Three Things with Ian, episode 118, April 28th. On today's episode, some of you may have seen my spoiler, my YouTube short. We're going to talk about the new EV truck taking the internet by storm, perhaps. I'll talk about a book I'm reading that I think you guys might like, and we will talk about the third topic will be a surprise. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. For those that have been here before, welcome. For those that are finding me for the first time, also welcome. Good to see you all. All right, so my first topic, and I hinted at this earlier, is a exciting, new, mysterious, much cheaper, perhaps Cybertruck killer is finally unveiled. So a company called Slate Auto, who I've never heard, has emerged from super stealth mode, revealing a hotly anticipated electric truck, EV truck, with a stripped down aesthetic and a DIY mentality. This company counts Jeff Bezos among its backers, and it's prioritizing a vehicle that bucks a quarter century of design, sizing, and pre-installed features to produce a truck so unique, seeing is believing. So I will post a picture of this truck, or a link at least. This is a very scaled down vehicle. This is a no frills, right? There's no info display. And because of that, this is a $20,000 after tax credits, which my article doesn't have the base price. But after tax credits, it says it's $20,000, which is $35,000 cheaper than the Tesla Cybertruck. It's a third of the price. It's modeled after a Japanese-style truck called Kei, K-E-I. It's simple. It's a simplistic design. Like I said, the key elements of the dashboard run on knobs. They stripped out distractions by yanking out any touchscreens. And because of this, they think that it's going to be a much more resilient truck. Apparently 3/4 of all the recalls and warranty issues with Tesla is on the snazzy sort of self-driving and the infotainment features and some of the extra stuff. Also, its footprint is minuscule. Total length is 174 inches, which to me means nothing, but the Cybertruck is 223 inches. And remember, that's like a refrigerator on wheels, right? The Cybertruck has a very unique look to it. It's not for everybody. But this Slate Auto truck, which I don't believe has a clever name yet, it's a lot less showy, but the takeaway is Americans are monitoring the next big EV. There's an appetite for it. There is a pushback and a public outcry for Musk and what he stands for, and there's people want EVs. People want maybe cheaper ones. I don't know. I don't know the specs in terms of speed and power. It's not going to be able to pull an RV. It's not going to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. But it's a really clean looking design, and it's stripped down, and it kind of harkens back to a simpler, different time when cars were just essentially knobs and an engine. In this case, a battery. So I'm going to monitor this closely. I'm excited about this. This is once again, the company is called Slate Automotive or Slate Auto, and this is a $20,000, pretty cool looking, I think, EV truck. All right, more to come on that. So the next story is, everything is sort of out of whack here in my notes, so give me just 1 second if you wouldn't mind. The second one is, okay, so I saw an image on the internet, and I had a caption. It was an image with some words, and essentially this was a very impractical bench. That really wasn't a bench, because a bench by definition means you can sit on it, right? This was kind of like a bench where you could rest your lower back, potentially for a few minutes, right? It's a bench you could lean up against. It's in the elements. There was no comfort or no shade, and the caption really stuck with me, and I want to share that with you guys right now. It said, "Such a perfect metaphor of what we give up due to the fear that somebody else might get something for free." And this is in response to the person it said, "Can't sit down after teaching for hours just because somebody wants to punish the homeless. Just the worst." And I haven't quite figured out how to articulate this thought that always percolates in my head, but we live in a society where a lot of people just don't want other people to get anything. So I am not saying that the homeless need, or all I'm saying is there's movement in cities where we create environments where people cannot exist comfortably. And we're doing it because we fear somebody, maybe a homeless person, just sitting down on this bench. This is not a useful, productive piece of equipment. And I've seen a lot of examples of this, and sometimes they code this as like, okay, we put spikes on it so that pigeons don't roost on it and different things like that. There's a little bit of like subterfuge and a little bit of like talking around the issue. But it reminds me of the debate about student loans, and people are furious that someone had the audacity to forgive someone's student loan. And it just strikes at this fear and this sentiment where people just don't want other people to get anything they think they're getting for free or shouldn't have. There was a big push a while back where McDonald's was going to raise the price of a Big Mac like 18 cents. It might have been less than 18 cents. And the idea was that this would ensure that everybody got $2 more an hour. And there was this crazy pushback where people didn't think that they should pay a little bit more so that other people could get something. People are still working at McDonald's. It's not a free $2. They were raising their minimum wage for their restaurant by $2, and it would cost people up to 18 cents. Something marginal and something that people would have spent the $5 versus the $5.18 either way. No one was going with just $5 and couldn't afford the 18 cents, or it was a very rare occurrence. And so we give up due to the fear that somebody else might get something for free is something that I think about constantly. And I haven't quite articulated it in the way that I would like to right now, but this picture, I hope I can find it and I can do a screenshot or something, but it was a supposed bench that had no utilitarian function. No one could ever get any respite from tired feet with this bench. And I get very frustrated when we live in a society and people around me are just so adamant that nobody should get anything for free. And we don't know anything about the average homeless person, right? Of course, there are probably some really nasty people that happen to be homeless, but there are really nasty people that are very homeful as well, is my argument. So anyway, more to come on that. I saw this and it struck me and I wanted to share it with you. And maybe you can fill in kind of the gaps in my train of thought here. The third thing today I want to talk about is a book that I'm reading for a book club, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Tolls, 2016 novel. So it's not a new book. The protagonist is a fictional count, a Russian count named Alexander Ilyich Rostov, born in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1889. So that gives you kind of a flavor of what century we're in. He was raised to be a well-adjusted socialite. He came from money. Upon returning home from Paris after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, he's arrested and charged with social parasitism or something. I can't say it right now. Anyway, he was a social parasite, supposedly. And essentially, his punishment is house arrest in this decadent kind of fancy hotel called the Hotel Metropole. And the book is interesting narratively because each of the book's chapters is set according to a doubling then halving chronological structure. The first chapter is the day after the count's arrest, the second 2 days after, and subsequent chapters are set 5 days, 10 days, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and 16 years after the beginning of the narrative. And then at that point, the structure reverses with the time between chapters progressively having it's a lot of words today until the final day of the narrative. I didn't realize that reading that out loud would be so difficult. But anyway, Amor Tolls, his inspiration was when he stayed in some luxury hotels in Switzerland, where he noticed that some guests are permanent residents. He combined the idea of luxury hotels with his knowledge of Russia's longtime historical tradition of house arrest. So this is like house arrest on steroids. So the book basically is the Count. He's a very well-read man, good mannerisms. He likes his tea. He likes his aperitif. And he meets different people in the hotel. And he, including, I don't want to give out too much away, but he meets a 9-year-old named Nina Kulikova, who's a daughter of a widowed Ukrainian bureaucrat. And what I like about the book is the different observations of life in the Soviet Union in a very different time than, the Putin era of today. It's a more glamorous, more mink-filled, with socialites, and the book doesn't really go into a lot of the politics of the Bolsheviks and the proletariats and the revolution and Lenin. It dabbles with that. It's good to know a bit about that. So the Count experiences the various forces of the revolution, the Soviet state, and the foreign guests provide opportunities for reflection on different historical moments throughout the Cold War. There's a lot of analysis on food and drink. He's very much a foodie. There's a very decadent sort of French-inspired restaurant that he dines on the cuisine there. But it's a social political commentary. It talks about friendship. There's a bit of romance, the call of home, and just the way he interacts with all the different people in the hotel, the peripheral workers over decades, right? Because this book has some big time jumps, and what it means to have a life sentence to be stuck in a hotel. So I'm reading it for a book club, and it's really interesting. I'm reading it kind of slowly. I'm kind of really savoring the different interactions he has with the people, and the Count himself is just a really fascinating character, I think. So it's a great novel so far. I could have a different opinion at the end, but I was thinking about topics today, and I talk about books, but sometimes I read books a little bit slower, and so there's a bit of a gap. Sometimes I just burn through books, but sometimes I don't. So this is one where I'm kind of going slower. I guess the last bit is this was adapted, Paramount Plus and Showtime, starring Ewan McGregor. They made a show. I think a 1-season, 8-episode show. I've never seen the show, haven't heard anything about it, but anyway, just wanted to share with you that. So I am very excited about this new EV truck from Slate Auto. I shared with you a bit about just kind of my modern day treatise on kindness, and about the fact that sometimes people are very adamant about not wanting other people to have anything because it somehow detracts from their ability to enjoy and to have whatever they have going on in their life. And then we talked about The Gentleman in Moscow, by Armor Tolls, who I could actually do a podcast about him because he had a career in like wealth management and finance, and then he became a writer very late in life. And I think that there's something to be said about not only the career change, but just the process. Once again, I'm a process guy. The process of writing, and what it meant to just change, and how that influences writing, having a whole life of other experiences. So I'm going to leave you with that. We are just about the 13-minute mark. That seems to be where the sweet spot is resounding on. And so I will leave you to have a pleasant evening, and take care, guys. See you tomorrow.